everyone, Adam here. Welcome to Unit 1, Employability. This is Lesson 1, Creating the Perfect Resume. I'll tell you that whenever we sit down and talk with you all one-on-one and we ask you, what do you hope to come away with from this class? Everybody says, I want to have a great resume and cover letter. And I can understand that. I want to get paid too. So this is what we're going to work on today. I do want to tell you some housekeeping first off. Last semester, we got our feedback. The students said, Adam, we love you, but your videos are too long. Apparently, I'm too long-winded. So I need for you to know that this video that you're watching now, or video series rather, is sort of the expedited, stripped-down version of this lesson. The understanding is that you would watch this video and then go back and read the reading and then also maybe check into some of the additional resources to fill in the gaps. If you like the sound of my voice, or perhaps just enjoy learning from this way, you can watch the extended play version from the previous semester, and it runs about the length of a traditional lecture, which is about 45 minutes. It's up to you, but just wanted you to know what you're getting into. Let's talk about our objectives for the day. We're going to talk about best practices for the process of job application. So this lesson isn't just about writing a resume as a collection of stuff that you did. This lesson is about the process that generates that document. So we talk all about how to do preparation, research, etc. We also want you to learn the different types of resumes and when it's appropriate to use each. Believe it or not, there are more than two. And then we finally just want you to create a real resume for a real job or internship. A resume should always be created with a particular position in mind. It should never be made as a general, generic resume because those are no good. All right, here are some key points that I want you to take away from this semester or from this lesson. These are Adam's key points. If you get nothing else, know this. The first thing is that it's not about you, it's about the potential employer. A lot of people approach the job hunt as if I have to present myself in a general sense as being really good, generally in hopes that I get hired. And then if I don't get hired, it's because I wasn't good enough. That's not always the case. It's not about whether or not you were good enough. Assuming everybody is qualified, then it becomes about who is the best fit for the potential employer. And so what you need to do in this process is you always need to look at who the potential employer is, what their needs are, what the mission of their organization is, and what their vision for the position that you're applying for is. And so it's about them. It's about what they want to accomplish and how you're going to help them accomplish it. And so therefore, whenever you get the job, it becomes more about I was the best fit. I was, presented myself as being the answer to this person's, lacking that the position, the vacancy, that's the word that I'm looking for, that they had. You become the answer. Great. All right, let's move on before I forget more words. The resume gets you an interview, not a job. That's the other thing. I think this takes some of the pressure off for people. You don't have to cram every bit of information into your resume because if you do a good enough job presenting the things that are going to pique their interest and say, I would like to meet this kid, then you'll have an interview and you'll have a chance to explain in your own words, the narrative of your life and the context and what you hope to do. That's the point at which those things come in. So that hopefully helps you all. And then finally, and this is something that I'm going to harp on, you always want to talk about in your resume skills and accomplishments and not just things that you've done. Because a lot of people, not just you all's age, but way later in life, they come in, they give their work experience, and they give a laundry list of stuff that they've done. And it's not about that. Here's why. Because if I'm a potential employer and I'm reading your resume and you give me a list of stuff that you've done, in terms of I worked at this job, I had tasks X, Y, and Z, I have to read that and then make the mental leap of saying, oh, well, this kid should be able to then do the things that I need, and then I have to make that jump. But if you talk about and present the things that you've done in terms of skills that are transferable and accomplishments that you've had that people will recognize, I can look at this resume and say, wow, team building skills are a thing that I need, or writing skills are a thing that I need. And then like skills are transferable, and I recognize them and say like more easily and be able to say this kid would be a good fit. Versus if you write, I wrote press releases, I have to then make the 2 or 3 steps to say, oh, he did this, and so therefore he must have writing skills and journalism skills, and then therefore like it'll match up with what I need. See how that's like cumbersome? So it works out better if you can just present it in terms of things that are immediately apparent to the people that could hire you. Hopefully that makes sense. Gosh, that took a long time for me to explain. Let's move on. All right, so what we're going to talk about in this series of videos, we're going to talk about what is a resume, resume essentials, resume pet peeves, and then parts of a resume. All right, let's do this thing. So what is a resume in the broadest sense? I'll wait. Just kidding. I hope none of you yelled at the screen. Anyway, so it's a personal but professional summary of your background and qualifications. It really is a record of things that you've done, accomplishments that you've achieved, and skills that you've acquired. It also contains information about your education, what your career objectives are, like what do you want to do in life, work experience that you've had, activities, awards, etc. And it's your passport to securing not a great job, but an interview. So most of you have a good idea of what a resume is. Here's some things. Resume essentials. Don't mess up any of these things. You want to limit your resume to 1 or 2 pages because people that have to look at these resumes have to look at a lot of them. And if you haven't convinced them by page 2 that you're a good candidate, page 5 ain't going to help you, all right? And in any event, like they may not even want to read it because it looks too long. So you always want to hold your resume to 1 to 2 pages and then pack all the good stuff in there. Also, you never want to use less than a size 10 font. All right. A lot of times people are thinking, man, I got to get a bunch of information in there. I better cut this down to 8-point font, and then I can get all my words in. But then it's really hard to read, and then they don't read it, and it defeats the purpose of making your font really small to put all the things on it to begin with. So keep it 10 or higher. Also, use a readable and clear font. A resume, you want to make it look nice, but it's not a time to get super fancy. Like you just want it to be readable. So no Comic Sans ever. You also want to print your resume on a LaserJet printer. I don't know how it works. LaserJets are like magic. Like the paper runs through. Somehow or another they put this toner dust on it, and then like I'm assuming they zap it with a laser, and it comes out so much more professional than the bubble jet printer you have in your dorm room that as soon as you put your thumb on it, the ink smudges. So get it laser printed. You can have it printed like professionally on campus. I think it's like 35 cents a sheet. Surely you can spare that. So get it done professionally. And then also use spell check and triple check for typos. Okay. Again, just because it's only going to be 2 pages, there's no reason that it shouldn't be perfect. All right, let's move on. Top 10 resume pet peeves according to monster.com. These are people, that they've polled that read resumes all day long for a living, hiring people. These are the things that will just get you immediately rejected, okay? Number 1, of course, spelling errors, typos, and poor grammar. Because what that says to me is that either A, you're bad at spelling, typing, and grammar, or B, you don't have the attention to detail or, care enough to want to do a good job on your resume. Again, it's not a dissertation. It doesn't have 300 pages with a typo in it. It's only 2 pages. You shouldn't make that mistake. Okay. Number 2, it can become too duty oriented. And that is sort of what I was hinting at the beginning, where you just give a laundry list of stuff that you did without talking about skills that you gained or accomplishments. Nobody wants to read a laundry list of stuff that you've done. Number 3, inaccurate dates or no dates at all. Here's why dates are important. It shows a chronological order, like a trajectory of things that you've done, all right? And so I can say this person has been on a path and they've stayed on that path and, they've not had any lapses. If you have dates that are inaccurate or you are missing none, I don't know if there are huge gaps, in your employment or in your education, and so I don't know, like, did you take time off to raise a family or were you incarcerated? Like those, I just can't tell, like based on, the inaccurate or incomplete dates that you gave me. So that's why it's important to have dates. Number 4, inaccurate or missing contact information. You would be amazed at who doesn't put their contact information on the resume because these people need to find you. Some of you will say, oh, but I had to fill out a form online and they have it that way. That's true, good point. Excellent. Very proud of you for reading the directions. But what happens a lot of times is once the HR department gets your information, they process it. What you turn in goes to their database, and they may print your resume and send it to somebody else that may hire you and not have access to that, database where your contact information is. And that's why it's important to have it on every document: resumes, cover letters, etc. Number 5, formatting. Okay, here's the thing about formatting. It only becomes important when it's bad. All right, and here's what I mean by that. Um, it doesn't matter how good of a candidate you are and how good of words you chose to put on the paper. If your formatting is ugly and is difficult to read, then people won't read it. They'll pass over your resume because it's difficult to get at the information. The best designed, best formatted resume is the one that you don't notice the formatting, because it is so easy for you to get at the information that everything falls away, and you just get the information exactly as you need it, looking at dates and education and work experience, and it doesn't become a barrier. Number 6, functional resumes. This is actually one of the two that apparently nobody likes, but we're going to allow you to do it because it may fit you. Number 7, really long resumes. We already talked about that. Number 8, long paragraphs. A lot of times in resumes, people use bulleted points, or they write in sort of truncated, shortened sentences, which is totally appropriate for resumes. You typically wouldn't write a narrative paragraph. So for example, you wouldn't be like, I worked at so-and-so's general store from the dates of this, and I enjoyed, performing these tasks, and then list. No, you would just say, was a manager at so-and-so's general store, was responsible for these, gained these skills, etc., etc. It's very cut and dry. Number 9, unqualified candidates. There's a time, children, when you should shoot for the stars, and then there's another time when your applications are annoying because you're not qualified for the job, and you need to know the difference. Number 10, personal information unrelated to the job. Here's the thing that you should use as a rubric for what to add to your resume. Will the person reading it read it and think, wow, this is applicable to the position that I'm hiring? If the answer to that is no, then you should not include, your personal hobby of knitting. Okay. If you work at a knitting store, then maybe that's appropriate. Let's talk about preparation for writing your resume. All right. So, and I feel like this goes without saying, but sometimes people don't know it. You need to research about the job that you're applying for. We're going to talk a lot more about this in cover letters. But just know that it's always appropriate to, check the website for their philosophy statement, their values, mission statement. You could also, check the news for this company to see, or, the industry to also see what trends are, in the industry, things that would affect them. You could always look up, if they're a nonprofit, you could look up their, man, I can't think of it now, but their tax form to see how they're doing financially, especially if you want them to pay you. So there's a lot of research that you could do. The thing that I suggest that is, perhaps most helpful is if you have a contact inside the business that you can call and talk to, in confidence and say, what am I walking into? What, are they shooting for? And that will give you just a wealth of information. If you can't, then definitely just do the web search. Find out as much as you can from those other materials. All right, let's talk about which format is right for you, and we're going to do this in the next video.
Thinking about what a friend had said, I was hoping it was